If you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you my life was exactly what I had always dreamed of. A loving husband, a beautiful daughter, a home filled with laughter, and a mother-in-law who smiled just a little too sweetly. Her name was Farah, and from the outside, she was everything people admired: elegant, composed, always dressed perfectly, always saying the right things. The kind of woman who brought expensive desserts to family dinners and kissed you on the cheek like you were her own daughter. But there was something about her smile. It never quite reached her eyes. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. After all, adjusting to married life comes with its own challenges, and I didn't want to be the kind of woman who created problems where none existed. My husband, Adil, adored his mother. He always said, "She's just protective, give her time." So I did. I gave her time, I gave her patience, I gave her respect. But what I got in return were questions. It started small. One evening, as we all sat in the living room, my daughter Alina played on the floor with her toys. She was only 3, full of giggles, with big, curious eyes that sparkled every time she discovered something new. Farah watched her closely, too closely. "She's very fair," she said suddenly, sipping her tea. "Strange, isn't it? Our family tends to have darker features." I forced a polite smile. "She takes after my side." She hummed, tilting her head. "Maybe." The word lingered in the air longer than it should have. "Maybe." I brushed it off, but it didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, the comments kept coming, always subtle, always wrapped in a soft tone that made it impossible to confront her without seeming oversensitive. "She doesn't have Adil's nose. Her hair texture is different. Genetics can be unpredictable, I suppose." Each remark felt like a tiny pinprick, easy to ignore at first, but painful when they started to add up. One night, after she left, I finally turned to Adil. "Don't you think your mom's comments are strange?" He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You're overthinking it. She's just curious. You know how older people are." "No," I said quietly. "This doesn't feel like curiosity." He looked at me, his expression softening. "I trust you. That's what matters. Don't let it get to you." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But trust doesn't erase doubt when someone keeps planting it, and Farah wasn't just planting doubt anymore. She was nurturing it. She began asking to spend more time alone with Alina. "I want to bond with my granddaughter," she would say, smiling warmly. "You should rest. I'll take her for a few hours." At first, I appreciated the help. What mother wouldn't? But then I started noticing things. She would take pictures, dozens of them, at odd angles, focusing on Alina's face, her eyes, her hands. Once I walked into the room and saw her comparing Alina's photo to an old picture of Adil as a child. She quickly put it away when she noticed me. "Just reminiscing," she said lightly. Something inside me tightened. Another time, I overheard her on the phone, her voice low but urgent. "I just need to be sure," she whispered. "It's important." When she saw me standing there, she ended the call abruptly and smiled as if nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying every comment, every look, every strange moment I had brushed aside. It all started to form a pattern I didn't want to believe. Farah didn't trust me. Worse, she suspected me. Days later, while Adil was at work and Alina was napping, I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. I was trying to distract myself when I noticed something unusual. A notification. It wasn't mine. Farah had used my laptop the last time she visited to check something online. She must have forgotten to log out. I hesitated for a moment. Then I clicked. What I saw made my heart drop. An email confirmation from a laboratory. Subject line: DNA paternity test order confirmed. My hands began to tremble as I opened it. There it was, details of a test kit already shipped, and the name listed under the sample, my daughter. Alina. The room felt like it was spinning. My chest tightened as the truth hit me all at once. She hadn't just doubted me. She had acted on it, behind my back, without my consent. I stared at the screen, my reflection faintly visible against the glow. The woman looking back at me wasn't calm anymore. She wasn't willing to ignore things, because this wasn't just suspicion. This was betrayal, and something told me this was only the beginning. I didn't confront her right away, not because I was afraid, but because I needed to be sure. That night, I sat across from Adil at the dinner table, watching him laugh softly as Alina tried to feed him rice with her tiny spoon. It was such a simple, beautiful moment. The kind of moment that should have filled me with warmth. Instead, my chest felt heavy. I kept seeing that email, that subject line, DNA paternity test, order confirmed, Adil. I said finally, my voice quieter than I intended. He looked up immediately. What's wrong? Has your mother said anything to you about Alina? He frowned slightly. What do you mean, anything? I pressed. About her being yours. The words felt bitter on my tongue. He leaned back in his chair, confused. Why would she say something like that? I held his gaze for a moment, searching for any hint that he already knew. There was none. That hurt more than I expected, because she doesn't think she is, I said. Silence filled the room. Alina giggled, unaware of the storm quietly forming between her parents. Adil's expression hardened. That's not funny. I'm not joking, I replied, my voice steady now. She ordered a DNA test. The words landed like a slap. He stared at me. What? I saw the confirmation email on my laptop. She used it last time she was here and forgot to log out. For a moment, he didn't say anything. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as he processed what I had just said. That's not possible, he muttered. She wouldn't, she already did. The denial in his voice cracked something inside me. You think I would lie about this? I asked, unable to keep the hurt out of my tone. I didn't say that, he snapped, running a hand through his hair. I'm just saying there has to be some explanation. There is, I said coldly. She doesn't trust me. The room felt suffocating. Finally, Adil stood up abruptly. I'm calling her. No, I said quickly. Not yet. He paused. Why not? Because I want to hear her say it to my face. The next evening, Farah came over like nothing had happened. She walked in with her usual elegance, carrying a box of sweets and wearing that same polished smile. My favorite girls, she said warmly, kissing Alina on the forehead. I watched her carefully. How could someone act so normal after something like this? We sat in the living room. Adil was quiet, his eyes fixed on his phone, clearly trying to contain himself. I didn't wait long. Why did you do it? I asked. The room went still. Farah blinked, her smile faltering just slightly. Do what, dear? I leaned forward, my gaze locked onto hers. The DNA test. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame, recognition. Then slowly she set her teacup down. I was wondering when you'd find out, she said calmly. Adil shot up from his seat. Amy, what is she talking about? Farah turned to him, her expression composed. Sit down, Adil. No, he said sharply. Answer the question. She sighed, as if this entire situation was nothing more than an inconvenience. I did what any mother would do, she said. I protected my son, my hands clenched into fists, by secretly testing my child, by confirming the truth, she corrected coolly. There was nothing to confirm. I snapped, my voice shaking now. Alina is his daughter. Farah tilted her head slightly, her gaze piercing. Then you have nothing to worry about, do you? The audacity of it made my blood boil. "You went behind our backs," I said. "You violated our trust, our family, and if I hadn't," she countered, "would you have ever told him the truth?" Adil's face went pale. "Amy, stop!" But she didn't. She stood up, smoothing her clothes as if preparing for a formal announcement. "I have seen things," she continued, "differences in her appearance, in her features. I am not a fool." "You're paranoid," I said, my voice low and trembling. "No," she replied sharply, "I am observant." The tension in the room was unbearable. Adil looked between us, his expression torn. "You should have talked to me," he said to her, "and risk being lied to." She shot back, "That was it." Something inside me snapped. Not into anger, but into clarity. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even ashamed. She believed she was right. A heavy silence followed, stretching for what felt like forever. Then Adil spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "When do the results come?" Farah's lips curved into a faint smile. "Soon," she said. My heart pounded in my chest. Because for the first time since all of this began, I wasn't afraid of the results. I was waiting for them. Waiting for the moment her certainty would shatter. Waiting for the truth to come out. Because deep down, I knew something she didn't. And when that envelope arrived, it wouldn't just prove her wrong. It would expose something she had never prepared for. Something that would change everything. The envelope arrived on a quiet afternoon. No dramatic knock. No warning. Just a plain courier slipping it through the gate, as if it carried nothing more than ordinary paperwork, instead of something powerful enough to tear a family apart. Farah called within minutes. "It's here," she said, her voice steady, almost satisfied. "Come over." There was no question in her tone. No invitation, just expectation. An hour later, we were all sitting in her living room. The same room where she had served tea and whispered doubts. The same room where she had watched my daughter like she was a puzzle to solve. Now, the truth sat on the table between us. Sealed, heavy, dangerous. Adil sat beside me, his hand gripping mine tightly. I could feel the tension in his fingers, the quiet fear he refused to voice. "Open it," he said finally, his voice low. Farah didn't move. Instead, she looked at me. "I think you should," she said. I almost laughed. She wanted me to open the very thing she had used to try to destroy me. Fine, with steady hands, I reached for the envelope. My fingers brushed against the paper, and for a brief second, everything felt still, like the world was holding its breath. Then I tore it open. The sound echoed louder than it should have. I pulled out the documents, my eyes scanning the first page. My heart pounded, then I froze. Adil noticed immediately. "What is it?" he asked, his voice tight. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the first line was already enough to change everything. Probability of paternity, 99. 99% confirmed. I let out a slow breath, of course. I had never doubted it. But this wasn't the part that mattered. My eyes moved further down the page, and that's when I saw it. A second section. Additional genetic notes. Something Farah clearly hadn't expected. Or perhaps hadn't even understood when she ordered the test. My grip on the paper tightened. "Adil," I said softly, "you need to read this." He leaned closer, his eyes scanning the report. At first there was relief. I saw it in his face, the tension easing, the weight lifting, then confusion, then something else, something darker. "What does this mean?" he asked slowly. Farah shifted impatiently. "What are you both talking about? Just say it." I looked up at her. For the first time since I had known her, she looked uncertain. I handed the paper to Adil. "Read it out loud." He hesitated for a moment, then swallowed and began. Due to extended genetic markers, discrepancies were noted in maternal lineage consistency. His voice faltered. Farah frowned. "What nonsense is that? Skip to the point." Adil didn't. He kept reading. indicating that the tested individual may not share expected biological markers with the listed maternal relative. Silence. Complete silence. It took a few seconds for the words to sink in, for their meaning to land. Then Adil lowered the paper slowly, his face pale. "Amy," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What does this mean?" Farah's expression tightened. "It means nothing. These reports are always full of technical jargon." "No," he said, shaking his head. "It means something is wrong." I spoke quietly but clearly. "It means the DNA doesn't fully match between you and your mother." The words hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Farah stood up abruptly. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked. "This is a mistake." She snapped. "These labs are unreliable. I knew I shouldn't have trusted." "You trusted it enough to accuse me." I cut in. Her mouth opened then closed. For the first time, she had no immediate response. Adil stood up slowly, his eyes fixed on her. "Amy, just tell me, is there something I don't know?" Her composure began to crack. "I don't know what this is," she said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "Maybe they mixed up the samples." "They didn't," I said firmly, because I had already seen the details. The consistency, the precision, this wasn't a mistake. This was truth, raw and undeniable. Adil ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. "So what? What are you saying? That she's not my mother?" "I'm saying," I replied carefully, "that something in your family's past isn't what you've been told." Farah's breathing quickened. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible." But it was, and deep down she knew it. The room felt smaller, heavier. Years of certainty were collapsing in seconds. "You wanted the truth," I said quietly, looking directly at her. "Now you have it." Her eyes met mine. Gone was the smug confidence. Gone was the superiority. All that remained was fear. Adil stopped pacing. He looked at her, not as a son seeking comfort, but as someone searching for answers. "Amy," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "what did you do?" That question, it didn't just shake the room. It shattered it, because whatever came next wouldn't just expose a mistake. It would uncover a secret that had been buried for decades. And this time, there would be no hiding from it. Farah didn't answer right away. For the first time since I had known her, she looked small. Not physically. She still stood tall, her posture rigid, her clothes perfectly arranged, but something inside her had shifted. The certainty, the control, the quiet superiority she carried like a crown, it was gone. In its place was something fragile. "Something human." She began, then stopped. Adil took a step closer, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. "Amy, please, just tell me the truth." Her eyes darted between us, searching for an escape that no longer existed. "There are things," she whispered, "that were never meant to come out." A bitter irony hung in the air. She had chased the truth so aggressively, forced it into the light, only to find herself blinded by it. "What things?" Adil pressed. Farah closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering the courage she had spent a lifetime avoiding. "When you were born," she said slowly, "there were complications." Adil frowned. "What kind of complications?" "At the hospital." She continued, her voice unsteady now. There was confusion. "Another child, another family." My heart skipped. Adil stared at her. "What are you saying?" She swallowed hard. "They told me later that there had been a possibility of a mix-up," she admitted. But I refused to believe it. I refused to accept it. The room felt impossibly still. "You mean," Adil's voice cracked. "You mean I might not be your biological son?" Farah's silence was answer enough. Years of identity, of belonging, of certainty gone. "Just like that. You knew?" he asked, disbelief turning into anger. "All these years you knew this was possible?" "I didn't know," she said quickly. "I just suspected, but I chose to raise you as mine. I loved you as mine. Loved me." Adil's voice rose. And yet you questioned my daughter. You tried to prove my wife was a liar. Her face crumpled slightly. I was trying to protect what was mine. And look what you did instead. I said quietly. She turned to me, her eyes filled with something unfamiliar. Regret? I didn't think, she whispered. No. I said gently but firmly, you didn't. Silence settled over us again, but this time it wasn't sharp or explosive. It was heavy, final. Adil stepped back, running both hands through his hair, trying to process everything at once. I don't even know who I am anymore, he said. You are exactly who you've always been. I replied softly. Nothing about you has changed. He looked at me, his eyes searching, and our daughter. I added, she is yours, that was never in question. Something in his expression softened then just a little, but the damage in the room remained. Farah sank into her chair, her strength finally giving way. I made a mistake, she said, her voice breaking, a terrible mistake. I watched her carefully. For so long, I had imagined what this moment would feel like, proving her wrong, exposing her cruelty, making her understand the pain she had caused. But standing there now, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear, calm. I won't argue with you, I said. And I won't fight you. She looked up, surprised, but things will change. I continued, for me, for my daughter. Adil turned toward me. What do you mean? I mean boundaries, I said. No more interference, no more secret decisions, no more questioning my integrity as a mother. Farah lowered her gaze. You don't get to hurt us and then pretend nothing happened. I added, I understand, she said quietly. And for once it sounded like she actually did. Adil walked over to me, placing a hand gently on my shoulder. You're right, he said, this ends here. I nodded, not out of anger, but out of certainty, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about proving a point or winning an argument. It was about protecting what truly mattered. That evening, as we left the house, I held Alina's small hand tightly in mine. She looked up at me with her usual bright smile, completely unaware of the storm that had just passed. And I realized something important. Farah had tried to break me with doubt. She had tried to tear apart my family with suspicion. But in the end, she had only exposed the one thing she could never control, the truth. A truth that didn't destroy us, but freed us. As Adil wrapped his arm around me and we walked away together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, because the sweetest revenge isn't loud, it isn't cruel. It doesn't seek to hurt. The sweetest revenge is standing strong while the truth speaks for itself.